say good morning.
Good morning.
That was better. Okay. I almost said something else. I'm like, no, I can't use that phraseology in church. So, went back to basic training days on that thought for a minute. So last Sunday after church, of course, most of you know, we drove down to Reading and then up to French Gulch and had a good 2-hour visit with Ronnie and Carrie on Friday night. Plus we also had about 4 hours with them on Sunday night, and about 4 hours with them on Monday. So, of course, before we went, we decided, well, we should get a hotel. So we, book a room. And then Brian and Janine found out that we were going, like, oh, we have a whole bunch of, this hotel chain's points, like more than we'll ever use. Let us book the room for you, and you can have it for nothing. Well, that's a good deal. So they book a room in a different hotel. It was very clean and very well kept, right? But Sunday night, it was at the stroke of midnight. I know because I woke up and looked at the clock. I was sound asleep. Second floor of the hotel. And I wake up to this voice somewhere outside my room. I couldn't tell if it was on the, on the walkway in front of the room or if it was out in the parking lot because it was loud and it was in command. And it said this, put it down, put it down, put it down. That sounds like a cop telling somebody to drop whatever it is they got in their hand or they're going to get shot. I've said that many times, right? As have others in this room. So I come launching up out of bed, grab my gun off the nightstand, because I always take my gun when I travel, and just waiting to hear the shot. Nope. And then the same voice says, how high are you anyway? And this very raspy, kind of rancid sounding female voice shouts back, I am not high, and a whole bunch of expletives. And I thought, and then that voice became rather muffled, but yet still going on. And I thought, I think that person's probably in the back of a police car about now. So that's when I took a peek out the window. And, yep, sure enough, there was the Reading Police Department down there in the parking lot dealing with business. And I don't think anybody got hurt. There was no shots fired. I was like, well, then I couldn't sleep for like an hour and a half, right? So, of course, it didn't help that there was another woman involved in this whole mess that didn't go to jail, who kept shouting at her boyfriend across the hotel parking lot for an hour and a half until she finally wore out. Like, on a Sunday night, people go to bed, right? So it was kind of funny. I had to tease Brian. I was like, see what you put me up in? It was mildly entertaining, and it brought back a lot of memories of dealing with people in various hotels and hotel parking lots in the middle of the night who were disturbing the peace of everyone else. Now I understand from the other perspective of the one person getting woke up, right? Probably woke up everybody, I think. Anyhow, it was fun. All right, I want you to turn your Bibles, please, to 1 Peter. Whoops, I'm 1 Corinthians. How did I get there? We'll be there. I'm reading something right there. 1 Peter. Alright. So we have started. We're back to 1 Peter again. We started here a few weeks ago going through 1 Peter. And in that first section of 1 Peter, this first, especially verses 3 through, 12, right? Peter is bringing us back in our minds to salvation, to our salvation. He does it in a very descriptive way. And then what he's going to do is he's going to come up with a call to action. In fact, he does this throughout 1 Peter, is there are all these little calls to action, and each one is a little bit different. So I'm going to call this one, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up. Now, we've all probably heard the phrase, don't get caught with your pants down, right? How many hunters do I have here, or previous hunters, people who have hunted before, okay? Or hikers out in the woods. Anybody go out and hike in the woods? All right? Now, at some point, you got to do your business, don't you? It's always, if you're hunting, it seems to oftentimes happen at the most inopportune time. You got to do your business out in the woods, so, you got to drop your pants, right? So your rifle or your bow or whatever you're hunting with gets leaned up against a tree or a log. You take your pack off, you take your coat off, get your binoculars off, right? So everything's out of the way. get your little wad of toilet paper, right? And you're doing your business, and what happens? The bear, yeah, or that bug that you're, bull that you're looking for, right on past, right? Now, I've heard stories of people actually grabbing their rifle with their pants down. I've never been able to move that quickly. I always miss my opportunities. Or how about, certain elements in our society, at least you don't see it quite so much here, but every once in a while you do, who, young males especially, who seem to want to have the waist of their pants down about knee level. So we can see with their colorful boxer shorts. And I see that and I think, how in the world do you run from the police like that?
Poorly.
This is difficult. So what do they have to do? They got to pull their pants up, don't they? Right? Okay. This is kind of imagery of getting your pants up and tightening up your belt, isn't it? Now, I'm not going to show you what happens if I loosen up my belt, because my body form and shape, the pants might fall off. So I got to cinch up my belt. Before I'm ready to physically go do something, I got to cinch things up and be ready to go. If you are, if pioneer women in the big long prairie dress, if they had to run across the field, what would they have to do with that dress before they could just take off running?
Pull it up a little.
You got to kind of cinch it up a little. You got to pull it up and hold it in tight, right? Because what happens if that big long prairie dress is just a flapping in the breeze as you run? You're going to trip over it, right? It's going to slow you down. If you're running from the wolf or the coyote or the tornado, if you're in Oklahoma or something, you got to pull that thing up. You got to tighten up. So you have to prepare yourself. Because there's a little phrase you're going to get to here in Peter in a couple minutes that should give us that kind of physical imagery, but it's a spiritual thing he's speaking of. Okay, so we're going to take the physical to describe the spiritual. That's what this book on spiritual combat does. It takes the physical act of fighting for your life, whether you're in combat in the military or you're a police officer, or you're just fighting for your life in a parking lot because somebody's trying to steal your car or something. Okay, takes that and applies spiritual warfare to it. So to be prepared for spiritual warfare, we can think of things in a physical manner, but it's actually spiritual. So let's read. I'm going to start in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 10, just to back up. The passage we're really going to look at is verses 13 to 15, okay? But for a little context, 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 10 says, "Of this salvation the prophets have inquired." So he's speaking of the salvation he's been describing from verses 3 to 9, okay? "Of this salvation the prophets have inquired and searched carefully, who prophesied of the grace that would come to you." Speaking of the prophets of the Old Testament. Okay? The prophets of the Old Testament were looking into what they wrote and what the other prophets wrote, looking for the grace that was come to you, to come to you, and that grace is Jesus Christ. They were looking forward to that, trying to determine in those prophecies of the Old Testament, when would Jesus come? What would his name be? Because they didn't know at that time his name would be Jesus, right? They had descriptive names for him, but they didn't have a name for him. They didn't know exactly where he'd be born quite, although there was some clues in there. Bethlehem. They didn't know exactly when, and they did not know what he would look like, nor did they know what he was going to do exactly. But they were looking for that anyway. So what they were looking for, we have already received. So, they inquired and searched carefully, verse 10, prophesied of the grace that would come to you, verse 11, searching what manner of time the Spirit of Christ who was in them was indicating when he testified beforehand the sufferings of Christ and the glories that would follow. The Holy Spirit was in those writers, inspiring them to write what they wrote, even though they didn't really understand all that it meant. And in some of what they wrote, They were inspired by the Holy Spirit, breathed on by God, so to speak, of the sufferings of Christ. It's all foretold in the Old Testament in numerous places. To them it was revealed, verse 12, that not to themselves, but to us, they were ministering the things which now have been reported to you through those who have preached the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, things which angels desire to look into. So it was revealed to the apostles, having a senior moment there. To them it was revealed that, not to themselves, but to us. They were not ministering to themselves, they were ministering to us in the future. The things which have now already occurred. Jesus Christ already been born. Already grew up. Already led his disciples on a grand adventure for 3-ish years. Ministering to the broken people of that area. In that area. He already died. He was already buried, and he already rose again. Exciting things. Things which even angels desire to look into. See, Jesus wasn't born. Jesus didn't die, and Jesus wasn't risen again for the salvation of the angels. He did all that for us. And since we know that, since we have at least knowledge of that, hopefully it's got a hold of our soul. But since we know that, we need to do something with it. Right? Since we know it, we need to do something with it. Now, I know that in this room there are at least a couple of athletes or former athletes. Some of them play basketball, some of them play volleyball. Some of them who are here today would like to play football, if the school will ever allow it again. I hope so. And so you can study videos, right, of other athletes, or you can even study videos of yourself. But you probably should study videos of athletes who know what they're doing and apply it. And you can watch those videos over and over again. But will it do you any good if you don't then get out into the court and practice what you just saw? Athletes, will it do you any good? To watch, to learn, maybe reading the book, I don't know, silly little pictures of, how to hold your hands together so to play volleyball, or how to shoot a basketball, or how to dribble. You can watch it all you want, and you can read it all you want, but you got to do something with it. There's a call to action by your coach, isn't there? Your coach will say, okay, we've watched this video, now get out there and sweat it out. And if you mess it up, watch the video again. Get out there and sweat it out. Watch the video again. Get out there and sweat it out. He or she is going to give you a call to action. And it's only when you actually do something with it that it becomes part of you. Right? It's only when you do something with it that you can become a better volleyball player, or a better basketball player, or a football player, or a pickleball player, or whatever, right? A better marksman. That was kind of my thing. I can't run to save my life, never could. I was always slow. Can't throw a baseball straight. If I do, it's a miracle. Right? Don't shoot hoops very well. Don't jump very high. But I can shoot a gun. But somebody had to teach me. I had to take what was taught and apply it over and over and over for thousands and thousands of cycles of a trigger, right? To get really good at it. There's a call to action here. Peter has reminded us of our salvation. He has reminded us of who Jesus is and what he has done for us. Now, here is his call to action. Different translations translate it a little differently. I'm going to read it to you from the New King James Version because it's kind of funny. Verse 13 of 1 Peter. Therefore, gird up the loins of your mind. Be sober and rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. We'll stop there for just a minute. Gird up the loins of your mind? Well, what kind of language is that? Well, let's think back to the prairie dress for a second. If a woman or a man is going to run in the big, long, poofy, puffy prairie dress, what do they got to do?
Waist it up.
They got to hoist it up and tighten it up around them a little bit. They can't just let it, flop around their ankles. It's going to get in front of their feet. They're going to step on that fabric in front of their feet, and it's going to be comical, isn't it? You're going to see this big poof, as somebody goes head over heels and dress flying everywhere, and all that kind of stuff. All that embarrassment. Got to tighten it up. He's using this language because, throughout, men have not worn regular pants, with a belt throughout world history. This is a relatively recent invention out of Western Europe at some point. Now, maybe we could blame Napoleon. That guy? The guy who always had heartburn? Right? I don't know. Maybe he was keeping his map, his war map here. I don't know what he was doing. That's why they call it a Napoleon pocket. If you have a little side pocket here in a jacket or something like that. Because Napoleon always, when he got his picture painted, he was always like this. I don't know what he's trying to do. Anyway. Pants are a relatively recent invention. Men used to wear robes of sorts. You can call it a dress if you want. What do the Scottish call it?
Shorts.
Yeah, but those are like a mini skirt, okay? They probably wore those shorts so they could run, right? I mean, I would imagine, some Scottish Highlander would probably get laughed at if he had a really long, flowing kilt, right? With a slip and all that stuff underneath it. He'd get laughed at. But men, especially Middle Eastern men, 2,000 years ago, how they dressed. Some of them still do. The big, long robe. So, in order to prepare yourself for action, if you are dressed that way, you'd have to gird it up. You'd have to tighten up your belt, so to speak. So Peter here, like Paul, is using the physical to describe the spiritual. When he says, therefore, gird up the loins of your mind. In other words, tighten up your brain pants. Prepare your mind for action. Before you do anything, right, you must engage the brain, hopefully. I hope you engage your brain before you decide on anything, or before you take action, or before you say something to someone. And that's one of my downfalls. A lot of times my brain is left in neutral while my mouth is in 6th gear. Or 10th gear. Sometimes, right? 18th if I got a big truck, right? And he's saying, therefore, engage your mind. And how do we do that? How do we prepare our minds for action? Athletes, just before a game starts. How does your coach help you prepare your mind for the action that is about to occur for the next 4 periods?
Game plan.
Game plan. Yeah, pep talk is one thing, but we need knowledge, don't we? We need a game plan. In the recent past, how do we want to play our game? Right? You got to know more than just what the enemy's going to do or the opponent's going to do. You got to know, how are we going to play it? Right? What are our plays? Right? Do we not have, I know we have playbooks, right? There's patterns to be run and things like that. Maybe in volleyball. Is there a playbook for volleyball? Kind of? There kind of is.
Probably, yeah.
Probably. I would think so. Certain people are going to, in a certain position, got to do certain things, and when that person, of course, doesn't do it, well, then the ball hits the floor, right? Or hits you in the face. That would be my. Okay. All right. Unless I can shoot at it, this doesn't do much good. Maybe I should play volleyball with a shotgun. That'd be kind of fun. You must then know the playbook. You must engage yourself in that playbook. Imagine a football team that throws a relief quarterback in and he has no idea what's in the playbook. And the coach calls on his headset. The offensive coach calls and says, play, Alpha 3. Well, if you don't know what the playbook is, you'd be like, 83. I think I'll just make it up. So you have the relief quarterback doing his own A3, and you have the rest of the offensive line and every other player that's out there with them doing somebody else's A3, and the quarterback throws the ball over that way when all the receivers are over that way. That's the kind of thing that happens, isn't it? But if the quarterback knows the playbook and he says this is the play, and the players know the play, he doesn't even have to really look to see if his receiver's there because he knows he'll probably be there. That's kind of how that works. That's how at least, I'm not going to mention any particular names like Tom Brady. Not that I really care who wins the Super Bowl, but it would be nice if for once he would lose. But if we could root for the other guy just to do it. Sorry, all you Patriots fans out there. But how does he know where to throw that ball so precisely, so specifically, unless he and his receiver know the playbook inside and out? When he says, we're going to do this play, with all that noise going on, they can't hear much. And when he receives that ball from the center, then he can take a couple steps back and huck that thing, and that's where it goes, is to where it's supposed to go. When it all works, it's a beautiful thing. It's because they've trained not just their bodies, they've trained their minds for action. How do we, Christians, gird up the loins of our mind? How do we pull up our spiritual pants and cinch up our belt?
Read the Word.
We need to know the truth. I want you to go to Ephesians chapter 6. So Peter writes this in 1 Peter. We're going to go to what Paul writes. You can see that they are both inspired by the same Holy Spirit. Peter may have had the chance to hear this from Paul at one point. I don't know. Most of us should be familiar with the armor of God passage in Ephesians chapter 6. Well, most of us are probably familiar with the physical description of the armor of God. The physical being used to describe the spiritual. Ephesians 6:14. So we're going to look at the physical, but I want you to think, if you can, in spiritual terms. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth. Look at that. Stand having girded your waist with truth. In other words, having tightened up your belt with truth. Peter's really using this, a modification of this image. But it means the same thing. To gird up the loins of your mind, to tighten up your spiritual pants, is to fill your mind with truth. I am quite convinced I am not getting 100% of the truth from any media source. I am getting whatever the writer of that, if they even wrote it, usually they steal it from somebody else, it seems, wants me to think is the truth. If I want to know what God says about something, then I need to fill my mind with it, don't I? We have been given a call to action back here in Peter. Fill your mind with the truth. Be sober. Now this is called sober-mindedness or sober thinking. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how much alcohol you drink or don't drink. However, when you fill your body with chemicals that alter your thinking, which includes alcohol, can you think straight? Adults, we should all know this one because we've all been taught this. It's physiological fact. When you consume alcohol, what is the first thing you lose? Your inhibitions. The things that keep you from doing things you know you shouldn't do. So if you fill your mind with the truth of God and then you fill your body with alcohol, what happens to the truth of God? There's less room for it, isn't there? If you look at it as like a fuel tank, okay? A split fuel tank with a balance tube in between. I understand this because my motorcycle is this way. It has fuel that is carried on both sides of the motorcycle way down low. It's very unusual. Makes for nice balance. But in order for there to be balance, there has to be a tube that connects the two so that one side doesn't run out, leaving one side full of gas. Well, I did this a couple weeks ago. I had taken the whole thing apart to do my winter maintenance, clean everything underneath there, get the engine cleaned off, make sure everything is tight, and the electrical connections are still good and all that stuff. I put the tank back on, reconnected the balance tube, but there's a little shutoff valve, almost like a petcock, on both sides of that tank to allow fuel to flow between the sides. I forgot to open it. I took a nice little ride. Oh, Sun River. I went up to the Kapka Snow Park, which sits right at the base of Mount Bachelor, and took the highway, back down into Bend, past the 7th Mountain Resort, where, well, Brian and Janine are at with their friends. And just before I get to the 7th Mountain Resort, my motorcycle, which said I had a half a tank of gas, ran out of fuel. And it's like dead. So I coasted. There's a little turnout off the side of the highway with a little, kind of overlook, and there's nobody in there, and there was no ice, thankfully. And I pulled into there, and I thought, oh, I don't want to have to call my wife to come up here. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did I reopen the balance valves? Did I allow fuel to flow between the two sides of this tank? Oh, no, I didn't. One of them is very easy to reach. One of them, you have to take this big plastic gas tank guard off to get up there and reach it. Did I have the exact right tools with me at the moment? No, because they were in my saddlebags, which were in the shop. But I had my MacGyver tool. Thank goodness for Gerber Multiplier. Thank you, Gerber of Portland, Oregon. A flat screwdriver blade fit perfectly inside the little Torx bit, star bit looking thing that I had to take like 4 of those off to get the guard off to get in there and open them out. So 5 minutes later, I was good, back on the road. But I didn't have half a tank of gas anymore, because as soon as it balanced itself out, it said it was empty, but I had enough gas to get to town. So. Okay, so think of your body and your mind having this split tank. And you fill up one side with the Word of God, but then you fill the other side up with alcohol. You open those valves up, right? What happens? Are you burning the Word of God, or are you starting to burn the alcohol? Which one takes over? The alcohol takes over. The volatile alcohol takes over the mind, right? So if you filled yourself with the truth of God, but then you waste it by wasting yourself, right? Whether it's alcohol or any other mind-altering substance, is there room in the mind for the truth? Or do you start listening to the lies? Yeah. Now let's go something maybe even more insidious than that. What do you listen to when you listen to the radio? Or the television? Or the YouTube? Or what you read on social media? Or what you just read the news or watching the news? Who do you listen to? Right? What are you filling your mind with? And I don't care if you're conservative or liberal. It doesn't matter. What do you fill your mind with? Are you going to fill your mind with people telling you what they want you to hear? Are you going to fill your mind with God's Word? Is what you are filling your tank, your spiritual tank with, does it make you angry? Does it make you frustrated? Does it make you want to lash out at them stupid people that don't think exactly the way you do? The people with those other bumper stickers on their car that you wouldn't be caught dead sticking on the back of your vehicle? Does the truth of God's Word tell you to be that way? No. If Jesus was driving around here today, he wouldn't have a single political bumper sticker on his car. Would he? He might have a Jesus fish on his car, but he's not going to have a my party versus your party, my guy versus your guy or gal sticker on his car. If you come to church angry because of what you listen to on the radio, I'm telling you right now, you're listening to the wrong stuff. Turn it off. Change the channel. Fill yourself with God's Word. No politician's going to do that for you. They might say they take sides with you as a Christian or with the church. Do they really? Fill your mind with the truth. Be sober. Keep your gas clean. Keep your spiritual fuel clean. Don't mix it with other stuff. Be sober. And rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Rest your hope fully upon God's unmerited favor. This is verse 13. I'm just paraphrasing it. Okay? At the revealing of Jesus Christ. That's what revelation means. It's not a scary word. It is at the revealing of Jesus Christ. And His grace and His salvation is not going to be fully apparent upon us until He comes to get us. And it's not going to be fully apparent upon the rest of the world until His second coming, when He stands on the Mount of Olives, splits it in two, and throws the devil himself into eternal jail. So, pull up your spiritual pants. Fill your mind with the truth. Be sober-minded. In other words, think carefully. Think through the lens of God's truth. Rest your hope. We can rest our hope in lots of things, can't we? When you came in here today, you rested yourself upon that chair, didn't you? Nice comfortable chair, by the way. I don't get to sit down. Unless I come in here during the week and just sit here. But you rested your hope that chair would hold you up, didn't it? But that's a very simple thing. What we rest our hope upon tells a lot about where our minds are. I've served this nation under, I've got to count the presidents. Reagan, Bush, Clinton for a short period of time, Bush number 2, and Obama. As a military person. That's 5 presidents. It took me a while to learn not to rest my hope upon any of them. In my civilian career, I served under, I gotta count them again, 4 elected sheriffs, all who promised great things in their campaigns. Didn't take me too long to learn not to rest my hope in those promises. Because they are politicians, aren't they? Rest your hope fully upon the imminent return of Jesus Christ, the revealing of Jesus Christ, as verse 13 says. And verse 14 says, we're to do it as obedient children. You catch that? As obedient children, not as rebellious children, not as the prodigal son type of children. We are to fix our minds upon Him, be sober-minded, rest our hope fully upon Him as obedient children. Not conforming yourselves to the former lusts as in your ignorance. That could be just about anything, couldn't it? The lust for sex, the lust for power, the lust for money. The list of lusts goes on and on. We are to do these things as obedient children, not going back to the old ways, as we did in our ignorance. But verse 15 says, but as He who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. Well, holy smokes, what does that mean? Isn't it funny how we put words together and they don't barely make any sense? Holy means set aside for God's purpose. Set aside for God's purpose. You are to be set aside for the purposes of God. When you allow yourself to be that, when you allow God to do that in your lives, He makes you holy. If you go back to the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and you go through all this, all the furnishings of the tabernacle. The furnishings of the tabernacle were made out of things that were fairly common. When the Israelites left Egypt, Exodus tells us they plundered the Egyptians. In other words, they were so happy, the Egyptians were so happy to get rid of the Jews, to get rid of the Israelites, because of all the plagues. They brought them their household riches, their gold and silver and their jewels. They're like, here, please, take it to go. Stuff that was used within their house could have been used for worshiping, right? Worshiping their pagan gods. Where do you think the gold that was used in the temple furnishings came, or the tabernacle and temple furnishings originally came from? It came from the Egyptians. Right? God used that which was common to the Egyptians, which was taken as really plunder, right? Pillage and plunder, take as much as you could get and then run away. That's what the Israelites did. And He used that, right, to build or to have them make His bowls, to use the gold on top of the covering of the Ark of the Covenant. And then those things were sanctified, set aside for a holy purpose. Us too. We're all just common folk, aren't we? Some of you are a little unusual and uncommon, but we're all just common folk. I'm pointing at myself. We are just ordinary, everyday people, aren't we? Really no different than pretty much anybody else. We have good points and we have failings, right? We have family members that make us roll our eyes. Or worse. We have things we don't want to tell anybody else about. We have things we wished we didn't do or say. That Aaron used in the sprinkling or the sanctifying of the tabernacle furnishings to signify that they had been set aside as for a holy purpose, we have been sprinkled, sanctified, purified by the blood of Jesus Christ shed upon the cross and set aside for a holy purpose. And if that is the case, why would we ever want to go back for an unholy purpose? Let's take a case. Remember the spittoons? You know what a spittoon is? It's not something you see very often anymore, but most of us, if we study history, will know what a spittoon is, right? What is a spittoon? A place where you spit. If you know somebody who chews tobacco, they might have a spit cup. That is like a miniature spittoon, isn't it? Do you want to drink what is inside the spit cup? I made somebody do that once. It was rather comical. Back in my military days. That guy's now a youth pastor in Colorado, by the way. So maybe it worked. But he decided when he was 18 years old and was away from home and we were deploying to the Middle East, he was going to learn how to chew tobacco. I'm like, no. It's not what you need. He tried to learn to do other things too. And I'm like, no. What am I going to tell your mother when we get back? She'll think we corrupted you. I never seen anybody turn so green and gag for so long. It was wonderful. Anyway, so a spittoon could be a beautiful thing, couldn't it? Right? It's like an ashtray. There's some really fancy ashtrays out there too. Remember ashtrays? We don't see those hardly anymore either, right? There's really fancy brass and glass ashtrays, ornate things. Same thing with spittoons. But what was inside of them is nasty. But what happens if you took the spittoon or the ashtray and you thoroughly scrub it all out? And then you take that beautiful spittoon that no longer has nasty, tobacco spit in it, and you plant a beautiful flower. Have you not changed the purpose of the spittoon? So in a sense, that's like being made holy. You went from spiritually filthy, dirty rags, and you've been washed away of all that stuff. You have been made clean. Why go back? Why get angry at everybody again? Why drive around with a scowl on your face? I mean, I do that sometimes just from the way people drive. It's like, get out of my way, I'm important. That's not a very holy way of thinking, is it? Am I getting personal over there? I hear somebody laughing. But I do it. Right? Verse 15, but as he who is called holy, God is called holy. Jesus is holy, and he has called us holy. You get that? But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. There's your call to action right there. Pull up your spiritual pants, tighten up your spiritual belt, and fill your mind with the truth. Fill your mind with the truth. And be holy. Because God is holy. We're his. We are his instruments here on this earth. Did you catch that? We are his instruments here on this earth. We are to take the Spirit of Christ everywhere with us and in us and share it. That's what the history of the church is supposed to have been. Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we don't. I think in the last few years we have, for a general rule, we have not been getting it right. Be holy, for I am holy. Tighten up your spiritual belt. Fill your mind with the truth. Be sober and rest your hope fully upon the second advent of Jesus Christ that's coming. Rest your hope fully upon that. That's the only thing you can really trust in, folks. Only thing you can fully trust in is that Jesus is coming again. Be ready. Let's pray, and we'll close with a song. Father, we thank you again for today. Thank you for each one here, each one that's going to listen on YouTube, and I hope that they play the whole thing through. We pray for each one that we will fill ourselves with your truth, as the truth will make us free. And that as you are holy, we will allow you to make us holy as well. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we're going to sing hymn 239, Jesus is Coming Again. Come up and get yourself a book. If we run out, I got one.